Hello and welcome back to Modern Day Mystic with me, your host, Janine. This is just my channel where I share with you my journey. That is what I'm doing. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm not trying to take away your own agency. I'm just sharing with you in hopes that you understand that there's a different way of being in this field. I'm most known for being a medium, which means that loved ones who've crossed over can give messages of love. I'm also extremely intuitive. And I also have an affinity for the spiritual path, the mystical path, even the religious path. As you know, my whole website, everything is called A Quest for Truth. It's just my own journey. I do all of this with the knowing and the explanation that all I'm doing is sharing. I'm not trying to convince you one way or another. I'm just sharing my experience in which you have the agency to have your own and your own opinions, because I don't really think any of us really do know all the things. We don't really know what this is all about. We just have experiences. And so that's my framework. I'm doing this because I've been doing the work professionally for about 26 years, and I get some pretty frequently asked questions. So I figured I will do my very low-tech, non-AI version of answering these questions. And so today I'm going to answer one of the most frequented asked question, and that is, Janine, when did you know you had the gift? And I always call it the gift. So first off, I want to say is I think we all have the gift. Having said that, just like someone might be really good at math and not so good at grammar, I do feel in the same sector, some of us just have a clearer connection, if you will. It's, what have you, than others, but I don't think that it's only for the special. I think we all have this. So just, starting there. The second thing is, it's always an interesting question because you don't know you're different until you know you're different. So when somebody asks you, well, when did you realize that you were able to do these things, what you're really asking is, when did you realize that your normal was different when compared to other people's normal? So I just always want everyone to kind of understand that we all have our own frame of reference of the world, and we don't know that reference is different until there's a comparison. So that's number one. So when somebody says, like, when did you know? It's really, when did you realize that you were different? So so really, the reality is I always did feel different than those around me. That's one thing that ever since I was a really little kid, I knew that, especially the adults around me, it seemed like they were missing something. Like I really felt like they couldn't see or understand things. And the other thing is, when it comes to mediumship, I was actually really, really afraid. Most of my childhood was spent in a lot of fear. I didn't sleep through the night until I was 12. I didn't like darkness at all, like needed full lights on all the time. I did feel things around me. I didn't know what they were, and I was afraid of them. So the next question, when I hear that, most people are like, well, was it bad? Was it good? I honestly don't know. I was a child who felt things that weren't explained, and that sort of just automatically made me scared. That's just the reality of it. The one place, though, that I will say that is really huge on my journey is the one place I did really feel this incredible space of love and safety is actually when we went to church. It's really quite interesting, especially because, we all live in the now right now, and churches are not always a safe place. There's a lot of things that we can talk about that's wrong, right? With really any organized religious space. Having said that, I really didn't know what was being talked about, again, when I was a kid. I do remember, though, there was a presence that I did feel in which was kind of my start of, feeling safe, of feeling love. It wasn't until later on in which I started to learn some of the things that were being taught that I didn't agree with. And I was like, that's not what I'm connecting with, And as I say this, I just want to make sure everybody who's watching, I don't believe that there's one path. So if you're somebody watching this and you're a religious person, I honor that, and that's amazing. If you're somebody who's watching this and you're really, really turned off by anything religious, I really, really appreciate and honor that. I don't want you to feel I'm just sharing, okay? I'm not preaching, sharing. I want to make sure that that's clear. But for me, that was the first place in which I will say I felt really not just different, but really felt this connection. So for me, where some of my friends who are mediums and things like that, their connection started with seeing like a grandmother who's crossed over, or, talking to, a dead, somebody who had passed away, and their mom or their dad being like, what are you talking about? Like, how would you know that? Those type of things. That was not mine. Mine really started with this connection to a divine source. And I would have these like really, really intense in the, having gone through seminary, it's called a pathos, but I wouldn't have known that then. This really intense feeling of how I felt the divine felt. So just like I would be really young, and I remember like going to my mom and talking about like, I think God's lonely. I mean, that's such an odd thing for a child, but I was like, no, I don't think he feels understood, or she feels understood. I would get really like, I would feel really like this, like, I don't know how to explain it, but I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, like if the creator created everything, they don't have parents, and like, what do they do if they don't have parents to go and hug them when they're feeling sad? Like that kind of connection, if you will. And I would have those feelings, and also this sense of, to be honest with you, this sense of like everything is okay. This I was able to enter into something that felt like what I would say love is. And that a lot of times did not, as I got older, did not match up to a lot of things that were taught in the religious and spiritual spaces. And again, that pathos of feeling misunderstood would come through, if you will. Like, I'd be like, no, that's not what God, like that's not it. Like I'd have this like aspect, and then I was raised Catholic. So Mother Mary was always a very prominent figure in my world, and that divine, what we would maybe call divine feminine, but for me, a divine mother in particular was something that really drew me. So that was my base, and I do think when I do work, or as one of the things that I will say I have found in the spiritual, the psychic, the mediumship world that I sort of don't fit into, is that for me always it comes back to something not really so much of like knowing that there's eternal life or that your loved one loves you. Like, while those things are super important in our journeys, I'm not saying they're not, but it's something bigger. It's like there's this love that goes beyond the words and the teachings. And so that's just something that has always been my space of grounding. It is also where I like sort of butt up against a little bit. And again, this is not a judgment on what somebody else's path is. It's just sharing mine. I know a lot of, intuitives who will talk about their guides. And I'm not saying I don't have them. But I will say that for me, there was always a very big sense of going to the highest of the high, the creator of all creators, not the universe, like bigger than the universe. Who made the universe is like I have always had this like really big pull, if you will, to go to the highest source of benevolence and love, and then allow things to come through. And that's just been the path. And no one really taught me that, I will say. I don't want to say I didn't come from anything. I literally just feel like I was born with that connection, with that, whatever that is. And so I kind of always didn't feel completely right when people ask me for information, like from their guides. I'm like, do you really want, like, okay, why don't we go higher than that, Or when I teach intuition, I'm always like, go to the highest place first and then see what comes through. And then as I even grew older, that highest source felt more of a collective than a one. But it was almost, I don't know if anyone's seen like the show Steven Universe. It's like a kid show. But it's about elements. I don't know how it is, but there's a way where things confuse together. They are separate and then they confuse and they create something else. And I think that would be more of what I sort of feel like it is. It's like there is a oneness that is a collective though, and it creates something completely different when it's together. But also there's separate components which have to be who they are or what that element is. And that's kind of how I view what I would call sacred community. Is not so much as that we believe the same things or we are the same things, but that we get to fully be who we are, even the beliefs we have, without it competing with somebody else's. But you play your part, kind of like a harmony, right? Like you can't play all the notes. You have to play your note, and then somebody else plays their note, and then someone else plays their note, and then it creates a harmony. And there's an overtone to harmony, if you know music. So there's something that gets created that cannot be created without all the different parts coming together. So how did I find, so when did you realize? So when I really realized that I could connect to the other side, particularly with the like loved ones, wasn't until I was, in my like really right around the 18, 19, 20, 21 area. But, and I actually have, maybe I'll publish it. I actually have like this story that I wrote when I was 10. I wrote a story when I was 10 years old. It's called Witches Up. Witches with a T, meaning like a witch, and it was a pun on words. And the story goes like this. There was a little girl whose grandmother passed away and left her a witch's hat. And when she put on the witch's hat, her dead grandmother appears and tells her that she comes from a line of witches and that she now has the choice to become a witch or to be a regular person. And the story goes on. It's a pretty long story, especially for 10 years old. And the story goes basically that the little girl has this choice. She's either going to choose to be a witch, and she will, never be able to unsee, if you will. I'm using those words, but that's not. Or she will choose to be a normal person. She'll forget everything that happens. And I believe in the story, but I don't know if it's in the story or if it was in my mind, that the little girl's mother chose to be normal and has forgotten that she's a witch, which is really interesting in my own, path or whatever. But and then in the story, what's also interesting is the little girl chooses to be normal. And I think that that's a really huge indication where I knew but I didn't know. And also a really huge indication of my own personal journey of just wanting to be normal, of not wanting the burden. And I'm going to call it a burden. Everyone thinks the spiritual path, everyone thinks like, oh, you'd be psychic and then you'd know all these things. And, or, if I, like I feel, and I've met so many people who like desire the path. And I'm like, you don't. It's hard. It's really, really hard. Especially in times like we have right now, when you kind of can see some things, and when you see the other side, there's a lot of just heartache, pure heartache. Watching people make decisions that will hurt their soul, that's hard. It's so hard. And knowing I'm old enough now where you really can't stop anything. It doesn't matter how much you can see. It's not just, you're not in control. So I think that it's really interesting. That story is interesting to me just because it kind of shows 10-year-old Janine knowing that she's going to have to make a choice at some point in time, knowing that she's got this, and actually almost feeling like she does have a choice to be normal, when the reality is, at least in my experience, is I just don't have that choice. And for me, a lot of the people who I've seen who choose to deny their own spirituality, their own intuition, their own this, are like, end up with a lot of like kind of mental illness spaces. And I really do believe a lot of our mothers, if you're watching this, a lot of our mothers and our grandmothers who were really brought up in such religious oppression, where the mystical, the spiritual, the intuition, the healer, the this was, and we're talking about kind of like thousands of years, but like where really the witch hunts happened, and just terrified to allow somebody else to know that you have something more. I do think that it damaged so badly psychologically, that ended up with a lot of just, not just trauma generationally, but abuse, because, when you are constantly feeling something that's true and constantly being told that you're wrong or you're evil for it, it really does a damage that I don't think we talk about as much. And it does. I mean, we'll get into it, but I've definitely been persecuted for what I do. I don't know what else to say. You can't be who you're not, and you can hide it. But what is that? And again, I think that's where my spiritual connection goes towards, is like, if I'm not who I am, then I can't really be connected in the way that's authentic. What kind of relationship is that? I don't know. Kind of heavy. So I'll keep going on to really when I started. There's two big things of how I started working, how I started getting into this. One was I met another medium who I happened to just be in a group with, and I was intrigued about what she had done. She's a good friend of mine to this day. Her name is Rebecca LaCicero, if you want to go check her out. But I went to kind of learn from her, and she just kind of like one day just looked at me. She goes, "You could do this. Just do it." Like, it was really like, and what I will say that kind of unlocked what I could do is somebody believing that I could. And that's why I think I'm such an advocate of telling people, no, you are intuitive. Because for me, really, truly, it wasn't so much of a learning as just being accepted, as just given permission, which is kind of odd if you think about it, but it was true. And she would just say things like, just say what you think is common knowledge. And so then I would say something that's, I think everyone knows. And she's like, well, why would you think everyone knows that? I never said that. Like, why would you think I have a brother? I'd never told you I had a brother. Why would you think this? I never said that. And that's really when I started to know that, oh, I am different. I didn't know what I felt was common knowledge. Other people didn't. And so I worked with Rebecca for a really, really long time. We worked together. We did a lot of things together. But just so you know, like, it wasn't like the readings I did, 26 years ago, 25 years ago, like, are not the same readings I do now. I didn't have a line of people out my door for a very long time, and it's a lot of work. So, especially if you're new to this, and you're like, I really feel like I have to do this, but like, literally I have like one client, or something like that, and you think that that's like a gauge of your ability. It's not. It's really, I really believe that we get what we can handle. Again, it's just in a different framework. And that's why it's hard to be like, do this work in a world of which the job has, our perception of what work is and what a job is and how to get paid doesn't exactly match. So the other big piece was I did grow up very religious. So I did have a lot of like, am I evil? Am I not? Should I do this? Should I not? I had a lot of inner turmoil. And then one of the things that got me to actually do it for work, well, there was two things really. One, I was a massage therapist and I would pick up things all the time. And after a while, people would literally come to me really more for the messages than the massage. And there's just an energetic component of like physically, right? So if I was like physically and manually massaging, you can't do that for 40 hours a week, right? You can only do that for 20. If you can't read 40 hours a week of people you just don't have, we're human, so there's a component of when it comes apparent that it kind of came apparent that I couldn't work and do this. I had to do either or. There just isn't enough energy. And if you do know me for a long time, you have witnessed my ebb and flow. Like when I have a child, I don't work for a full year. I don't do readings at all. I don't have the energy. The energy goes to my kid. There's, as I'm getting older and in perimenopause, I'm seeing my energy change again. So I kind of ebb and flow with the work. But there was one significant time where I made peace with the fact that I was going to do this for work, and not kind of like behind closed doors, if you will, or that I felt like it was okay in a spiritual sense to do the work. Was I went to go see this other medium who did like kind of like groups, and they charged $30 per person. And I remember that because, again, let's go back 20 plus years. $30 per person is a lot more than $30 per person today. So it was $30 per person, it's just a decent amount of money. And I remember there being over 30 people there. And this is what this particular person did. They went, okay, who do you want to connect with? And someone would be like, I want to connect with my, my mom, and she would go like this. She's here and she loves you. And I saw this, like, I saw this happening, and I, in the group, was receiving so much at the time. And I was like, oh my God, her mom just says like she didn't get to say goodbye. And like, and I was like, it would come through and it would like almost torment me. I don't know how else to say it. Be like, no, don't, yes, she loves you, but. And I would have all this information and I didn't know what to do with the information. I wasn't gonna, mess up this woman, this person's thing. And everybody in this room, I think I saw the desperation of what it, when you're grieving. And everyone's like, oh my God, yes, thank you. And I just was like so angry because, I mean, not that this person was saying anything bad or wrong, but if you will, it was more of what gives our work a bad name, of who we are, a bad name, and again, charging money for that. And that's why I always am like, in the beginning of every reading, I'm like, the message is I love you. I mean, if that is what you need, if you want to really know, like, if you've seen my work, and I'm always like, the message is I love you, it comes from this experience. Because if that's all you need, don't go and pay for it. I'm telling you right now, your loved one loves you, even if your relationship here on earth wasn't the best. And if that is a need, and again, it is a need, like, we all should know that, but you don't have to pay for that information. You don't have, like, that, I always say that's the given. And it's because I don't know how to explain that experience. So afterwards, so I watched this whole thing, and then I had written all this stuff down, and I kind of passed it out to people. And I didn't want to like steal. It wasn't for me to like even get clients. It had nothing to do with it. It was more like I felt like truth wasn't told. And so I really kind of went and I like passed these little notes out saying like, I'm just saying this is what I received. I gotta go. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that I wasn't looking for a competition. I wasn't looking to bring this lady. It's not a judgment. It wasn't a judgment on her. It was, the whole experience was for me. And I think that that's really important to understand the more you do the spiritual journey. It's not about someone else. It's about you. It's about your coming to being. And we have to sometimes let go of the wrongs of someone else and start to focus on the rights of you, like your inner transformation. You need to transform me. I need to transform. So, for me, it was this moment where I realized I couldn't, number one, keep love inside and not share it. That was one. The other part was I knew I was going to be honest. I knew that if I didn't get something, I would just say I'm not getting anything. If I did, I would just say this is what I'm sharing. It was just a really pivotal moment. And I remember, so I passed these notes down. I do remember one woman kind of like ran to the car and got me. She goes, do you do this work? Like, do you want? And I remember being like, I don't know. Like, because I wasn't comfortable yet. And I also wasn't there. Like I said, I wasn't there to like try to like blow up this lady's spot who was doing the work. I just happened to be in that space, and I was searching for something, and I found something. I found the fact that, and that's again where my whole thing, A Quest for Truth, comes from, was I just wanted to be honest and truthful as much as I can. And then, right, we get older. We realize that, we're not always truthful, even if we were really trying to be. We don't know the truth. And that has also shaped a lot of how I present things or or the way I work in which makes sense to me. And so there are some things that really do, like I said, like butt up against, some things that, again, I guess I was born with for this lifetime, maybe. And we'll talk about all of those questions. But so that's my 30 minute 26 seconds of how did you know? And the answer is slowly. And then even when I started to do the work, even when I was having experience after experience, and I still questioned and doubted whether I really could do what I do. Now I'm pretty like confident, if you will. But for me, it was a slower process of because there's so many different complexities in not just knowing that I could see or feel things that others didn't, but also accepting it out of the religious framework in which I grew up with, which was both where I felt the safest and which also condemned me the most. So there's, there was always a tension. And then I think one of the best, the question that I really feel that maybe people really would like to know, but they don't even know to ask, is at what point did you accept yourself and was able to say, this is who I am. This is kind of just who I am. It's not what I can do. It's who I am. I have the ability to see this because of who I, is, I would say, I'm going to say probably my early 30s, early to mid 30s, which isn't as long ago as as when I started doing the work. I did a lot, scared, nervous, not knowing, questioning. And so so it took a while to really, I think, come to this full acceptance. And then I will say it's just right now. So I'm 47 now, or almost 47. I'm starting to feel even more in my skin. And I'm starting to even be able to, do things in which are even more outside the box, and not so much in the spiritual side, like not so much in like doing readings as well, as much as recognizing, like if you watch me, I'm crocheting a lot, but as just really allowing myself to outwardly live what I kind of believe, which is that everything has a divine, everything is the divine. That, I guess if you want to call it more animism, if you want to use terminology, but it's not even that, just that there's such a big connection in which is outside the boxes we have. And that it's a relationship, it's not a top-down structure as much as a relationship and a growth. So I think right now I'm coming to like another evolution of who the heck are you? When did you know you could do what you do? I have this inkling that I think we could all do probably a lot more healing work than we think we can. I think we all have a power within us for good, for love, in which, the world tries to scare us away from. And so we just kind of keep tearing off those layers. If I were to tell you what my dream is, right, of like being in this work, I really, and I wonder if I really want to one day be like that old lady in the woods that you like somehow have to find. And that you come and I give you a reading, a healing, and some love and some food, and then you're off on your way. And I live like as a woman of the woods, you know. That's my fantasy world. And then I think about it being like, I don't know if I want just people to drop in when I'm not ready for them. So it's always fun to play that game in your head. But so that's the long answer of when did you know? And hope it helps. And also, again, I will say this: you are magical. You are good and loving. Only you will know how truthful you are, and that's important for you, for your soul. And despite all of the yuck in the world, and I'm not telling you, I mean, if you know me, I'm pretty loud-mouthed about oppression and things, so I'm not telling you to overlook that. But what I am saying is that love's voice has never, ever stopped. It's relentless, in a good way, and that's who you are. So, love you, love you, love you. Bye.